you take it from. Oh yeah, sorry, I
Sorry,
should have been
I
through
just
that.
started it. But go
No
ahead. No,
problem.
keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, Switchboard also acts as a pull oracle where you take data from an external data source and the user brings it on chain in their same transaction. So it's really fresh data, really fresh prices. And the great thing when you have fresh prices is that's actually great for perpetuals. Perpetuals need very, very fast data because of how people trade. Some people trade very highly leveraged. These minute changes go very quickly and they care about those little differences. So if they care about the little differences, you have to have all those changes really show and be impacted for themselves, for any liquidations that need to happen, whatnot. So how can you actually get really fast data when you want to be permissionless? It's kind of like a two-sided coin there. Like if you're going to be permissionless, it's really hard to bring all the different formats of data in the world as fast as possible, rather than just focusing on one thing, like really concretely. And, Switchboard, we tried a few things to actually get this down, but we decided on doing this whole different model as just Switchboard on demand. So what is on demand versus a normal pull model? And you might think of a pull oracle, Pith is a huge pull oracle. You have they're very good data source, by the way. They have all these first party sources pushing to their own chain, their own layer, and they have these prices updating constantly. Like every single slot, every half a second, maybe they're updating constantly. And what they do is they allow users to create a transaction to bring it back on chain of whatever chain they're integrated on. That's great, but it can be, a little expensive depending on how often you want these updated and how you want to do this. And, it's also still one data source. And when you think about oracles, there's two types of risks that you're taking whenever you're ingesting data on chain. There's protocol risk. What is the risk that this protocol has some issue with consensus? And then there's data risk. What is the risk that they're reading a bad source that might misprint a price? That could really affect downstream applications a lot. When you think about those two things, you gotta actually evaluate what you're gonna build up defenses for. So protocol risk overall, that can happen in many cases, but since all this is open source, you have the added benefit of having these pre-audits, having the community resources evaluating your code as long as you're open source and making sure you're safe. What's really hard with oracles is making sure that the data risk is mitigated as much as possible. So what Switchboard tries to do is lets you take all of these different sources and you choose all the data risk that you want to combine together in this index, this conglomerate. So when you have a source like Pith, you can actually ingest Pith through Switchboard. You can ingest Coinbase through Switchboard. You can ingest Binance through Switchboard. You can say if these prices vary by more than 0.5%, we want to alert this feed, stop this feed, or do some other action. And this really makes the fastest, most stable pricing cases that you can get that are just the safest things to use for your application. And what's really nice about this is that you can integrate all these different oracles, all these different sources through just one request reading the switchboard feed. So I'll stop there for questions. I know that was a lot of information, and that's really what Switchboard is. And we can go into like how you build your own data feed, because remember, we're an Oracle platform, not just an Oracle.
You got any questions? Feel free to type them in the chat and I'll read them out loud if you don't want to dox your voice. Okay. I'm going to take that as we all perfectly understood everything you said and are
Yeah,
ready to
I don't
dive
know. I
in.
don't know who is big on trading or highly leveraged trading. Late at night I open my phone and go 1,000x leverage on BTC on Rollbit back in the day. And that's kind of my shtick. But who knows? Anyone else's shtick might be relevant.
Yeah, I wish. I was never that confident. I
Yeah,
was
well,
confident I would get liquidated. That's basically
yeah,
it.
that's exactly it. Yeah, there you go. Well, that game, then be the liquidator. Then you can catch your own bag.
Oh,
Yeah.
ooh, only I was that smart.
Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, most platforms just let you run a binary that says run the liquidator.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
yeah.
I guess we can go
Maybe I can
actually.
take a whack at that,
Yeah, go
maybe
for it.
just
Sorry.
summarizing things, and
Yeah.
maybe we can go from there. So
Yeah.
Switchboard is all-in-one Oracle platform, right? So that means you have Oracle feeds, but you also provide abilities for people to create their own oracles and build with them, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Cool. And then you're a pull model versus a push model, which essentially just allows apps to define when they want to read price feeds versus waiting for a discrete time window in which they're updated. That's correct.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Cool.
I also like to point out that this is actually, we don't have our own data layer like all these other pull model oracles. We are on-demand fetching from all these sources. So we don't
Oh,
keep this data layer ourselves. So if somebody wants a price, we're going to get it right away. So we don't have to have the extra latency of an extra layer that things have to save on. So in a lot of
okay.
cases, it's going to be very, very fast pricing, maybe the fastest.
But this also means you can customize your feeds, right? You can pull
Exactly.
from pretty exotic places, correct?
Exactly, exactly. So you can make some really, yeah, like exotic markets are, one of our old taglines that we used to use, but you can really market out the long tail. If you are launching your own token and you want to make some derivative off of it, if you want to add it on some lending protocol, you can do it the same day you mint by just making a feed on Switchboard.
Nice.
Yeah.
So anyone doing any sort of DEX or even NFTs, right? They can basically
Oh
build
yeah,
price
we
feeds for.
have some floor prices just as feeds on Switchboard too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will hand it back to you guys to get into how we go ahead and build with Switchboard then.
Cool. Let me see. Can I share my screen on this? Is that an option? Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, let me actually get the URL I need for showing a demo because that'll be useful.
Cool.
Okay. I can minimize that. Da-da-da. So you can see my screen here.
Yes, we can.
Cool. So this is just our, basic homepage of go to switchboard.xyz. You'd see we used to be a purely push Oracle, and as we scale, that does not become economic for oracles that have to push all the prices as often as people want. But we have the on-demand option right here. If you go to the on-demand, it will take you to all of these chains that we're currently supported on. We have a few, ETH mainnet coming soon, and Monad when the testnet is public. But since Core is an EVM chain, I might as well just start here because you'll be more familiar. So if you look at this BTC feed that someone made here, maybe someone on the team, maybe someone public, you can see basically how people configure these feeds. And we have a job schema of how people pull this data. Here we have it coming from other oracles. So we pull directly from Pithnet and actually do all of the verification inside of all of our oracles. So this is end-to-end verified, although we're pulling this through our program. And then we have another job pulling from Coinbase. And through this, you can make an index of the two. And if they vary too much from each other, you can cancel those price action or do whatnot. But we can go and just start our own data feed. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to fork that data feed and say, I want to start one that looks similar to this. And you have this feed here for the Coinbase job and then the Binance job, the Pith job. And you can go and edit it if you want. You can see we have Switchboard just building off of another Switchboard feed. You can build off Pith or you can build off Chainlink right here too. So if you don't have Chainlink on the chain you want to use and Switchboard is there, we actually propagate Chainlink prices as well. And you can save the job. You can look at this if you want to change this job that we're actually making an HTTP task, which is just pulling from any REST API that you might want. You can do that as well. And we can go create this account. And let's just rename this BTC USDT because that's, I think, no, it's actually USD for both. Demo. Create. And confirm. Landing on chain. There you go. And we just made a new BTC feed just like that. And you might have seen on the previous page that there was a few extra configurations that you can make there. Let's see if I have a fork button again.
Wait, so now this BTC feed, if I go read this address on chain, I'm getting the updated price.
You read this address through our program. It doesn't make a new contract.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah. But you have to do the instruction to call for the price update through our front end SDK. And then it will enter that. What it does is all the oracles sign with the most recent block hash, so we know how fresh the prices are. And then it checks against the checksum of the work it did. And as long as that checksum matches, it knows that it read the correct work to be done on chain. And since it was signed with the most recent block hash, we can know that those prices are at least that fresh because to be in the signature, it needed to actually have that block hash produced by them.
Nice.
Yeah. And all the workloads are just posted on IPFS to save storage space on chain. And that's how the oracles read the info, et cetera, et cetera.
So
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So you were saying that you could just pull from any REST API. So does that mean like someone building a game, if they wanted to have their game off chain, but then have some elements on chain, they could just have REST APIs for those elements and
Exactly.
then just build a feed for
Exactly.
it?
Yep, you
Okay.
got it. So you go to the builder, and this is, I think, a brand new feed, build new job. You can do an HTTP fetch task, and you can put in any URL here. And then there is basically a schema for parsing out fields of a JSON response. So you can go like
Perfect.
data dot KD ratio, and then you can get the KD ratio of some player, something like that.
So if they want to make a leaderboard, say for a game, and then I don't know, like do anything, like incentivize the leaderboard, right? They could have the entire game off chain. They could, when you finish your game, you could then post something
Yep.
to the Switchboard Oracle, and then it would update the
Yeah,
leaderboard
or you
on
could
chain.
do like let's say I think this is exactly game ID equals 1, 2, 3, something like that. Dot winner equals player ID one, and then if it's player ID one or something like that, you could just like award the winner of this game based off of this ID that's returned, something like that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So you can show the results of some game if you really wanted to in that case, and then do some transfer on chain of some action that's from the game source.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
We did have a we did have a
sorry.
question. Are you Mitch from Switchboard? And I'm going to say
I
yes,
am.
but he
I
is.
am. Who's asking?
Ozon Shen was asking. So.
Zen. All right. Well, ping me after, and I want to know how you know my first name. I probably have it out there. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, cool. I'm gonna pause there, and I want to go for some more questions here. And you know what? I'll put this
Awesome.
link in the chat here as well. Chat. Oh, Salon
Perfect.
Crossroads. Very nice. Well, great to meet you again, son. Cool. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing here, and we can go through more. If you guys want to see some of the front end code or some of the on-chain code for actually integrating, I can let Albert take a quick snap of that. Could you give
Yeah,
us
why
an
don't we
example?
run through that and then we'll go through some of these questions afterwards. So
Oh, sure. Albert, do you want to share and just show some of
Yeah,
the
totally.
Cool.
So let me share my screen here. To stop one. Alrighty. So I'm just gonna walk through this doc here and sort of the example that we have. I mainly use Forge for deployment, but I'm sure a lot of you guys use Hardhat. We just went and walked through the process of deploying a feed on switchboards. So let's go actually find that feed. So Mitch, you did deploy it on core main testnet, right? So let's go figure out what that address is. So was it BTC
I did one of the
text, I
BTC
think.
feeds. I'm not sure which one.
Alrighty. Let me just give it a reload. I'm sure it's this last
You're,
one.
you're on mainnet there. I did testnet.
Oh, whoops. Yeah, thanks. Core testnet. All right. Oh. So let's go. Should redirect there. All right, sweet.
Yeah, top one.
Beautiful.
It was that
So
top one, the USD demo. Yeah.
Yep. So okay, great. We have this USD demo. Let's go and walk through how this would be, how we'd use this, given some of the utilities that exist in Switchboard right now. So yeah, so here I have this sort of example repo if you want to walk through how it is integrated. So you can see some of our contract addresses, what's currently live. All these contracts are verified on mainnet chains, but you know, obviously more to come as audits roll in. So we have some sections on getting started with our Solidity SDK. That's what you're looking at here. Our TypeScript SDK is cross-chain, so that includes all the stuff, all the content for addressing feed updates and other utilities for interacting with Switchboard oracles. However, in this case, actually, we're going to work through the simplest way to integrate Switchboard, which is currently using our Crossbar API, which is it's a server that we have. It's mentioned in our docs, but it's a great way to simulate feeds on your own time, on your own servers, and you can update feeds. You can kind of get an idea, a measurement of what the feed is, because our feeds are dynamic. You can create them on your own. You can kind of get an idea of what your feed is and a read on what the current price is without necessarily hitting an oracle that's live, which will be a little slower than if you're just running it locally.
Right. If I could add to that just for a second,
Sure.
when you think about Switchboard, we do have an exclusive set of oracles for signing prices, which is going to be a hot commodity for people wanting to update prices. So when you want to just get prices for your front end, we have the same code that resolves prices in the server called Crossbar. That's what Crossbar is really. It's to really get the workloads that Switchboard jobs perform and to get those prices without having to do the hot commodity servers that are the oracles.
Yep, and also since oracles will rate limit pretty heavily based on IP, the idea is that users can run Crossbar pretty easily. It's your standard. We're gonna have docs on that and coming soon, but better docs on it. We already have docs on it, but yeah, the idea is that you can run. It facilitates generating transactions and getting these bundles, kind of similar to if you ever interacted with Pyth, like they have a Hermes server, that kind of thing. But it's sort of like something that sits in between you and the oracles to facilitate transactions and make sure that your quality of life as a developer is as good as possible. So here in this, this is sort of the simplest contract that I come up with some events and whatnot to sort of exemplify how you'd read a Switchboard feed here. So Switchboard updates are encoded as int 128s with shifted to the left, kind of like chain link style with 18 decimals, scale factor of 18. So you'd kind of read it the same way you'd read a chain link price update, or I'm sure I'm not really sure how it does their updates, however, but it's fairly straightforward. You just pass in an array of bytes, so an array of byte arrays, and you'd pass that to our contract. So at some point you'd specify you'd pull from our SDK, our Switchboard on-demand Solidity SDK, the Switchboard interface, and some structs if you want to interact with, if you want to pull, sort of the format for reading data and Oracle updates. It's recommended to pull structs as well. So yeah, you'd call Switchboard update feeds with that array of updates that you'd fetch from Crossbar to fetch like a specific set of feed updates from oracles. So I will get into how to do that in a second, but the gist here is that you just want to read some data from Oracle. Well, our data is dynamic. You can pull it from anywhere. It could potentially even be negative data if you customize a feed for that. So we want to guard against that, and we make a check there. But the idea is that it's encoded, data is encoded in a pretty standard format. And here we might emit some event if the update goes through, and we submit some fee that is specified per chain, and the updates along with it. Yeah, so the basic format here is just you update some feeds atomically, and you read the updates in the same transaction. That way you get the freshest price possible. And the idea is that you would have feeds, the actual updates queried just before submitting these feeds on chain. So just for the context of this, just for the sake of this call, I'm going to show you how to make a call to Crossbar. We have a public server at crossbar.switchboard XYZ, but here's let's change to the contract that we're just on here. So we have this feed, core testnet feed 0x. So you'd grab that address. So here in this, you can grab this address field here and copy that over. Scroll over.
Crossbar is this like middleman server that's like
Correct,
buffering
yes.
price feeds.
Exactly. exactly.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, so we have this crossbar server that sits between users and the updates. And what you do is you could call, here's an example of a crossbar feed call, but I'm just going to show you how we get an update for this one. And let's oh wait, it's wrong chain. So here it's the chain ID. You specify the chain ID here, and just to get these results here.
Nice.
Right. So here's an update for this feed, this BTC feed via crossbar. And
Yeah, so Albert, for recent hash here, I see it's all a default base 58. That's supposed to be for the chain that we're fetching from?
right, yeah. So this is a testnet feed, and the idea is that we order by timestamp, but there's another security feature that we need to enable, which is or we can enable, which is to sort by limiting how many blocks we're off for this latest update. So that can be ignored for now safely because we also encode timestamps and in updates, and Oracle sign that data as well. So it's better sorted by timestamp than it is by block hash, but that's an extra security feature in case we want to. We're going to enable that in the future. Right. So yeah, the important thing here is that you can fetch the update just by hitting a URL, specifying the chain and specifying your aggregator ID. We have an SDK for this, but docs need to be improved on it, and that's coming soon. So we'll be rolling that out today and tomorrow. But pretty soon, the idea is that you can hit this URL through our SDKs and get this encoded byte array. And all you need to do to update the feed is you just pass that into the contract using Ethers or VM or whatever interface you interact with Ethereum with, and you pass it into this get feed data call, and the feed would be updated after that call. So yeah, so currently we have some pushers that exist that all they do is they hit crossbar, they get this update, and they update some feed. It's as simple as can be for us, but that's the general flow. And if you want to see an example, in this EVM on demand repo, we have an example sort of Foundry boilerplate for getting started with Switchboard. It's just what you see in the docs here. Yeah, and more to come soon, more to share, because we're trying to make this as easy to use as possible. So anybody who's coming from any other Oracle or from even people who are new to Ethereum development to begin with, might be approaching Monad as like their first blockchain, they should be able to pick up Switchboard and get started with data feeds.
So basically the process here, like if I'm a JavaScript developer, right?
Yeah.
I would just ping basically for that JSON RPC feed, which would give me that byte string. And then there's another message I send to update the Oracle. Does that also give me the latest price at the same time?
Yes,
it returns latest update.
Right, yeah. So latest update gives you the latest price in there, and it also tells you the timestamp of that update. However, you can customize on the feed itself, as you saw in the UI, how old an update you're willing to accept, and how many samples you want to actually make that update valid. So you could say I need 6 oracles to update my feed, and that's perfectly valid. We can fetch those 6 updates and make sure that every time it's passed in, you're just paying for the extra call data. So, and signature verifications, of course. So whatever gas comes along with that. But
so as a app dev, if there's an existing feed on chain, do I have to deploy an own smart contract to read it, or can I just actually use
no,
what
you just hit
exists?
this contract. Good question. So yeah, you just have to reference this this single contract. It uses the diamond pattern. So it's it's just an identifier in our code. And
okay. So this contract, this is your Switchboard API contract right here.
Well, no, this here is an example contract. So you'd integrate Switchboard, the call to Switchboard in your contract, and in an existing function call or one of your flows, you'd add this bytes call data updates parameter, and into whatever logic you have that in whatever function that you'd want to read a Switchboard update. And like other pool oracles, you'd pass this data along just as extra call data. It should be fairly light. It's just 1 or 2 byte strings, and depending on how many updates you want, of course. But alongside, when you're actually reading this data or using it in your contract, you would reference this. You'd reference the latest update data that you'd just be passing in. So here, you'd have in this example, get feed data would be some more complex business logic potentially behind the scenes or afterwards using this data, these updates that you've created for yourself. It could be multiple feed updates that are encoded in this call data. So you could potentially read, 2 pairs, for example.
Nice.
And yeah, the
So that
idea
really
is,
depends on your on-chain logic. But for
correct.
like front-end update price feed logic, like if I'm not trying to put the feed on chain, if I'm just trying to like update prices for like an app off chain,
Yes.
then I could just call any sort of get feed data function.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, you could
Okay.
call that. You could go to our crossbar server, and you could go hit Diamond Explorer on looper.dev, for example, and pass in this encoded data string into our update feeds call, and that will sort itself out into an update for that specific feed.
Oh, nice. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So so ultimately it would end up being routed to some contract on chain. Well, sorry, to the contract if you submit it on the contract. It would end up being routed to some update of your feed. So whenever somebody reads it, the latest update that would appear in the Explorer for Switchboard, for example, in this Explorer here, the latest thing that would show up would be the price feed that you just updated. So yeah, that's the flow generally. Yeah, you'd fetch it off chain and then you'd pass it into your contract along with some business logic to whatever call includes some business logic and validate the call using Switchboard and then read it. And the idea is that if the price update is invalid, it will throw, which is should really not happen, but generally we have the security checks on the reading side and also the writing side, but that's just where signature verification happens. And time checks, for example, happen on read. And yeah, that's it should keep you with the latest. It should keep your contract reads with the your data feed reads with the latest updated data. So yeah, the idea is that we want to provide users with the freshest data without wasting any funds on keeping feeds like updated without being read. Like a classic push oracle, where you're wasting updates. You're wasting feed writes because every write that isn't read is wasted ultimately. Yeah, so that's Switchboard on demand. More to come on the docs and UI part. So our plans are definitely to have links to docs here for specific chains, including Monad. And yeah, I think something like Monad where you have an extremely high performant chain could benefit from an extremely performant oracle. And that's hopefully we see something. Hopefully we see a lot of adoption with Monad, and we're excited to be here.
Awesome. So we got a couple of questions from the chat. If you don't mind, I'm gonna run through them. So the first one here is, could you give us an example of an exotic asset that would benefit from a Switchboard or oracle?
Yeah, Mitch, you want to chat?
Like anything long tail here, like actually very interestingly, Solon on Solana, Solana's currently
Yeah.
our most used chain, has a permissionless pool feature where people just can make their own feeds to open up a lending market around any token or any asset they want, anything really. Someone made a lending market around Trunk USDC, and this token Trunk or this lending pool now has $50 million of locked value, and this is a small time token that doesn't really have the attention to get some of these other Oracle providers to build a feed around it, and it's made a huge amount of value for people for these markets. So really, the permissionless aspect is a proven track record for what people want, and I think you can do a lot more than just price feeds.
Awesome. Yeah. So I mean, I think some of the coolest stuff here is just like, we have a lot of devs building kind of mini games for testnet. And it would be awesome if they could get some of that data back on chain, but like a lot of the game logic is already built off chain, right?
Yeah.
And so that's specifically why I asked about those REST APIs, because I think they could really use that to, essentially put a link between their game
In
and the
that
chain.
sense, Switchboard really can be used as a web proxy, if you think about it that way. You can make a data feed per user and only update it when they win or something of the sort like that. You can do a lot. That's even ephemeral. You can make a data feed for a player and check some of the contents of the feed that definitely associates it with user ABC and make it just to put the data on and just delete the data feed right after. So it can be in a sort a web proxy in some ways for the web. But if you have some of your components that, aren't ready to be in a decentralized world, like a game engine.
Right. And then you can take interactions from the game and just reflect them back on chain in whatever fashion.
Yep.
Awesome. I think we have one more question here. Are you planning on any sort of feature like Chainlink's CCIP, or do you integrate with them? Or if you could maybe speak on that a little bit.
No CCIP features planned just yet, but we do have Chainlink feeds, so you can freely use that now wherever Chainlink's not deployed yet.
Okay. So to be clear, we haven't announced Chainlink yet. So if you guys want to use Chainlink feeds, like going through Switchboard is definitely a way to do that. So heads up, guys. Do we got any other questions from the audience here, or otherwise maybe we'll give back you guys a couple minutes this time. We'll give it a couple seconds, see if anything comes through here in the chat. But Mitch, thanks for coming on. Thanks both Switchboard guys. I think Albert had a jump.
Yep, he had a go. But Kevin, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording here. If any of you guys in the community just have other questions to ask, I'm here for you. And thanks so much for coming on today and giving us a run through.
Do it again.
Awesome.
Yep. All right, I'll see you.
Peace. So I'm gonna stop the recording.